Tent. So thank you for putting us up in here, and thank you also for the free coffee and donuts courtesy of the OHHA. Our first session today, we're going to handicap the Little Brown Jug with the Little Brown Jug broadcast team. We've got a couple of new guests with us, and we've got a longtime guest. Let's go with the new guest first. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome our on-air simulcast host and author of Harnessing Winners, Dave Brower.
Thank you very much, TJ. Just want to welcome everybody for coming out this morning. We know it's always a little bit early, and it's good to see everybody. It's good to see the sun shining. It's not going to be good a little bit later on when the temperatures approach 90 degrees for us doing all the work today, so hopefully you'll find a nice shady spot and some cool beverages, whether it be water or some adult beverages. But Little Brown Jug Day, always a whole lot of fun. We get to see some great racing, we get to see some great horses and some truly memorable performances. I'd just like to say that it's an honor for me to be sitting in this chair. We all know who would be sitting in this chair under ordinary circumstances. Mr. Sam McKee no longer with us, so I've been facing an overwhelming task over the week and did all my research and work to try to make sure that I made him proud under those circumstances. And hopefully you've enjoyed the broadcast over the past couple of days. Hopefully you will enjoy today's broadcast as well. It's also my honor to be sitting next to two trusted friends and great colleagues, Miss Wendy Ross and, of course, the voice, Mr. Roger Houston. Roger, it's great to work with you again. I know it's been a while, but, you know, we go back to Tioga Downs a couple of years ago when you would fill in over there, and that was a long drive for you from the Meadows all the way up to Nichols, New York, wasn't it?
363 miles one way, and I made the trip every Saturday and Sunday that I could, and I enjoyed it. I will say one thing about handicapping. At Tioga Downs, I probably could beat Dave Brower. Here at Delaware, don't listen to my numbers, listen to his numbers. What was it, 10 each day?
Did I have 10 yet? I don't know how many I had yesterday.
Oh, no, I'll say, Dave Bianconi
okay,
usually is here, but he wasn't here this morning. He's got another engagement. But Dave beat Bianconi Tuesday, I think it was 10-7. He beat you yesterday 10-8. So
it's still close, though. Still close.
I won't tell you who was third, but I got a tremendous kick. So watch out today.
We're ready, and we've got plenty of races to handicap today, too. 22 of them in all, starting at 11 a.m. So we're looking forward to it, and I guess we should try to give out a couple of winners. What do you think?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I don't know. I got to be honest with my handicapping. And this is totally honest. There's so much going on. I handicap as fast as I can because it makes for very short nights. I don't get a chance to start handicapping until about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I'm not out partying like a lot of people, but I got other things I have to do. And I don't devote as much time to my handicapping as I should, especially back at the Meadows.
It is difficult, but let me tell you this. The most shocking part of my day was when I got back to my room last night after a very pleasurable dinner with some good down-home horse betting friends. We had a lot of fun. And I was catching up on my Twitter and my social media, and you asked me a question on Facebook, so I responded to it immediately. And it was like 10:40 p.m., and you responded immediately. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. He's still awake?
No, the voice is up. He doesn't sleep.
The ultimate... Now, I won't say it an insult, but it came from my daughter, who, because of what's going on this year, she wanted to be here today. And she says, be sure you get Dave Brower's picks for me. I want to bet his numbers. I mean, she didn't say, hey, Daddy, could I have your numbers? I want to bet. No, I want Dave Brower's.
So therefore, I had to make sure I got here early this morning, got a copy of that one page that we delivered to the TV truck with all the numbers on it. So Neville will be ready. It'll be great to see her. I haven't seen her in many years. She's a treasured friend as well. So glad to have her along for the festivities today, Roger. It'll be a great time.
She worked until 1 a.m. last night.
Oh, boy.
So she's got a rough trip this morning. Wendy.
Hi, Raj.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Raj.
This is my adopted niece by marriage.
Yes, we're family. I consider Roger family, so. He puts up with me.
It's a big family, too.
It is. It's a big family. Thanks for having me here, Raj. I appreciate it.
Well, it was very logical. And she adds a different perspective to the broadcast each day because she knows the horses probably better than most of us, at least some of the history of it. And so Wendy does a great job. I'm glad she's part of the operation.
So am I.
I think she was complaining about her hairspray spray this morning, and I said, I've got the best hairspray in the world. If you touch my hair, feels like a
It doesn't
porcupine.
move.
It doesn't move.
It won't move. It won't move.
Well, I've been coming here long enough. I know better. I know when you see 86 on a Thursday jug day, that means it's going to be hot and it's going to be extra humid. But we'll get through it. And I'm really excited to be here, and I'm glad I can be in front of you folks today. And hopefully, I can add a little insight into your handicapping numbers today. I always like to say that I have a good perspective, like Roger said, from the horseman's end. I know racing, I know horses, so I like to bring that angle. So if you have any questions about horses or being out there on the track or anything like that, just head in my way.
One thing, I've already done one race this morning. Woody in the morning, WCOL. They called the room at 6:45 this morning, so I called my first race at about 10 minutes of 7, and they always they do it every year. It's the Little Wood Jug, and Woody, Kayla, and Zuko. I think they're playing it at 8:40 on WCOL. For the first time in the history of the Little Wood Jug, we had a 3-way dead heat for win. And I wouldn't be surprised today if we don't have a dead heat for win. I think it would be so great if we'd get a dead heat for win this year more than any other year.
Has it happened before?
No.
Not in the Little Brown Jug, right?
On the Little Brown Jug. The only major, I'm sure, well, they had the one in the Hambletonian, they had a dead heat for win.
1989. In fact, that came up as a topic of conversation at dinner. You know what my job was at that time? Because I've done every job in the business except sweep the floor or sell tickets.
You haven't? I've done that.
Yeah, I was the teletimer at that time. I operated the race clock. And Charlie, who was the photo finish guy, we're in the same room. They hit the wire. I remember punching the button to make sure that the final time clicked over. And I looked over at Charlie and I says, "We got a problem." Because I knew it was either 1 inch either way or it was a tie. Right. Because we're right on the finish, and when they hit the wire, I was just in awe. And it took the judges like 15 minutes to try to have us, move that film strip and where's the wire, and they finally, they turned off the intercom, and then they took another 10 or 15 minutes, I think, to try and figure out what actually happened.
The Adios ended in a dead heat with J-time and strikeout. I wasn't there, but I was at the Miami County Fair in Troy, Ohio, watching on TV, and I remember that dead heat.
There was an Adios you weren't at? Wait, what? That was way before.
I didn't go to the Adios until '76.
Oh, okay.
So, but I think today would be very special. It would be a dead heat. Probably won't be, but it would sure add to the folklore or whatever you call it. This has been a very unusual season. Now, I'm going to get right to the chase. Facebook is lit up because we only have 8 horses. I'm pretty sure I'm right. These 2 horses out of the Brian Brown stable have dominated, and I mean dominated, more than any other year that I can remember, unless you go back to Niatros or something like that. But to have 2 horses dominate, I think they've only lost 1 3-year-old event amongst the 2 horses. And that's the reason I think we got a short field. So many people looked at it, well, here you got 2 major horses that are winning everything. They're on their home track. I'm going somewhere else. And I think that had a lot to do with it. I'm not saying that's the only reason. There might be others too. But I think that's one of the major reasons. It's a short field, the domination.
I would agree with that. And, Brian Brown has done such an amazing job of managing these colts over the course of the season, and he knew that eventually they would meet. And I'm probably, he probably doesn't ever want them to have to meet, because there's enough stakes money for the 3-year-olds out there where you can send this one that way and you can send the other one that way, and they'll probably both win. But they've been fun to watch. I'm looking forward to a great event today. Early on in the season, Fear the Dragon, I think, was the better colt. And as the season has progressed through the wars of the Glamour Boy Stakes division, it is now down by the seaside, in my opinion, who is the better colt. And we're going to find out today. You know, they're going to square off on their home turf, and I think that's what makes it most exciting.
Yeah, and I want to commend the other connections to the other 6 horses. In this business, when we put other things ahead of tradition, we're dead. We got to live with tradition. And I'm not arguing with why they didn't come or anything like that. But there's a lot of reasons. I don't want to hear it's because of 2 heats. We've got 8 horses in this race. They could care less that it's 2 heats. We had the Jughead yesterday. It was a great Jughead.
It was.
It really was.
It was.
2 heats. Didn't hurt those horses.
And
You train horses for 2 heats, and half the trainers in this business don't know how to train for 2 heats.
And I said this on the air yesterday. We've often seen here at Delaware when that second heat comes up, and you draw post 7 or 8, there's a tendency to scratch. Well, guess what? All 8 finalists showed up for that final of that Jughead, and they raced. So I wanted to, I said that a few times on the air yesterday. I want to say it to everybody listening now. We appreciate that. As the commentators, as the fans, as the bettors, everybody came back and raced that second heat. So thanks to everybody for showing up.
Wendy, any comments?
As far as the 2 heats goes, I think you're right, Raj. I think the business has changed a little bit, and with that, the trainers have changed a little bit too. And I think Roger's right. I think that they use that as they go. They don't want to go 2 heats, but it does take another level and a little bit more experience and knowledge to train for 2 heats. So I think that that's probably true what Roger said. People just don't really know how to do it just because they don't have to do that anymore. So it's just another style, but I think if you want to race, and like Roger said, you got to come here, you got to keep the traditions alive. This is a big race in the sport of harness racing. We know harness racing isn't at its best right now, and these are the type of moments where people got to stand up and say, you know what, I'm going to go race out there. I'm going to drive. I'm going to make the drive to Ohio. I'm going to put the time in, and I'm going to race 2 heats because that's what harness racing needs, and that's our business.
Precisely.
Was that okay for you?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah. I could go on another half hour on this subject. Fact is, I've spent 3.5 hours probably on Facebook.
Who in this room still likes to watch heats?
All right.
And I'll tell you,
80% of the hands, I would say. 80%.
I saw one person didn't hold
Tom
his
Wright
hand
back
up,
there.
and I don't know what. No, he finally held up.
Okay,
There was another person didn't hold his hand
Who
up.
didn't raise your hand? Tell us why you don't want it. Why you don't like heats anymore? If you didn't raise your hand, what? Yes.
I just think it's hard on the horse in today's world. You got the Breeders' Pound, you got the Red Mile coming up next week, and people like to go there for the.
Why is the Red Mile any more important than the Little Brown Jug?
Well, I wouldn't.
Yeah, tell me that. Why is the Red Mile any more important than the Little Brown Jug?
I just look for the health of the horse, and I just think it's hard racing on a Thursday afternoon in 90-degree weather, 2 heats in one day.
So we shouldn't enter the Hamiltonian anymore.
No.
I understand what you're saying.
But
I
I
understand.
think the Hamiltonian should also be 1 heat on a given day, and then elimination.
Thank you for putting that on there. You can, if you say that.
But that's just my opinion. I can respect yours too. I think it's I know exactly where you're coming from. I grew up. I've been in around the horses for my whole life, and I do believe in traditions.
Yeah.
And the Little Brown Jug is a special tradition. But there's 2 things that I think have to happen. We have to get the purse up to somewhere around $1 million. That's going to be a very big challenge for the team here at the Little Brown Jug to get the horses to want to come to race to 2 heats. So I think the purse money would help if they could get it up for the 2 heats.
I think, no, I won't say what I'm going to say, but anyway, and it wasn't derogatory, believe it. I was because somebody put on that they thought they should take up a collection and get $10 from everybody here. Oh,
That was you?
The chicken man right here. He says he thinks everybody should donate $10. That money be added to the purse next year for the Little Brown Jug. So 40,000 people at $10 a head would be what?
$400,000.
$400,000. We got it. In fact, I'll even put in 50.
Maybe we can give them a couple of $5 or $10 betting vouchers for that kind of donation. Pump up the betting pools there too. All right.
That's a nice hat you got there.
And I'll tell you, if we ever go to one dash for the cash, you can take 10,000 people that would have been here will stay home. Yes.
Roger, I was just coming in now, and I've been here for 30-some years coming. We missed a couple. And I have never came into the racetrack and drove straight in at this time of the morning.
We're glad to have you.
Well, I'm just saying from a negative standpoint, not trying to be negative, but at this point in time, if you ain't into the racetrack by 10:30, you ain't getting into the racetrack, basically. You got tons of people. You know what I'm talking about from a traffic standpoint? I hope that's not indicative of what's happening today. But
one of the negative comments that appeared on Facebook is it's just an Ohio race. I would guess that 30% of the people here are Canadian. I know that there are in excess of, well, I'm going to stretch this. There's at least 500, maybe 1,000 that don't even live in the United States of America, and that's not counting the Canadians that are here today. They're having a party tonight in Treguarren, Wales. 275 people have rented a hotel ballroom. They've hired 2 bookies to come in to book the bets, and they're going to be watching the races tonight from 7:30 until 2 a.m. in the morning or whatever period of time it is.
I'm not trying to make excuses either. You know, I think we've seen the downfall of people coming to the track as a whole. That's on, you know, and whether you do the races at night or do them in the afternoon, because, you know, it's a technology world. There's so many people. They might not be in the grandstand, but I guarantee there's a lot of people watching on their phone, on their iPad, or on their computers at work or at home. So that kind of, I think, has hurt us too. You know, as far as the social media and the technology has helped us, it's hurt our business as well. Is the fact that people don't have to come. They don't have to come to see the race. We broadcast it. You can get on your phone now with ExpressBet and other outlets as that. So, like I said, it helps the handle, but it's always hurts the population coming to the track. Don't you agree, Dave?
I do. Yeah. Go ahead, Roger.
Every racetrack is faced with the same situation. We don't get as many people at the Adios that we used to. They don't get it anyways near the crowd at the Hambletonian that they used to. We don't get the crowd that we used to here at Delaware. And it's because what Wendy said. You can go to a simulcast location. My little granddaughter, 13 months old, she watched the entire program yesterday. Entire program. Nevi put it on a phone. She wouldn't leave. She was watching the races. It has hurt attendance at the racetracks by far. So when you see the attendance down, don't let that be a barometer on our sport, because the viewing audience is far greater than when we're talking about 10, 15 years ago.
I think someone had a question. I think it was Teacher Gracing actually put out a question probably a week or so ago that says, what can we do as horsemen, as fans, to help our sport of harness racing? I have always been a firm believer of, let's put harness racing on the map. Let's spend we need to spend more money on getting it on a national level. Even the Meadows back home, which is Roger and I's home track, they've got commercials. When I see a Meadows commercial come on, I'm like, that is what it's about, is seeing that. We need to be on that. We need to be on the 6 o'clock commercial news broadcast. People need to know, because being out in the world, there's so many people like, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm in harness racing. Oh, you guys, the ones you ride? So this is the thing. People just don't know enough about harness racing. It's kind of died as a whole, and we need to really put it back up on the grand scheme and give it some, like, a big picture, and really get it out there and let people know what's going on.
Well, I did catch several promos this morning while tuning into Good Day Columbus,
Yes,
the ABC
I saw that
network.
too,
So
right?
I was up pretty early this morning, so we flipped the TV on, and they promoted it through each block. So they had live, they had video. The only thing they didn't have was somebody on site to actually report from the fair. Maybe they will later. But I want to take the little bit of negativity, people that and bring it a little bit more positive. Now, Roger, one of the big things I've tried to do here this week is open up the communication between us on the set and the fans out there. I've got my own work Meadowlands email address out there, dbrower@playmeadowlands. We got a bunch of emails on Tuesday. We got even more yesterday. You picked up on the Wales group. They emailed me, and it was nice to hear from them. But we had emails from people in Oklahoma, Florida, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and I think I even got one from California. So people out there are watching. And if you want to be part of the show and our broadcast, send us an email today. I see every one of them, and if it's as long as it's fit to be reported on the air, we give a shout out. We want the fans to be part of this. Have their input. Tell us who you like. Tell us who you think's going to win the jug. Tell us a good betting story. Maybe you made a big score here one time many years ago. We heard that from Randy McCown, and we want you to be part of the program. We're ready for you. Just feel free to email in, and we're going to have a lot of interaction, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And today I'm finally going to get to give away a couple of things. I've got a few of those Bob Hayden trivia questions. So I've got one or two.
them.
There's one good one, and if I have time for a second one, I've got some nice swag that was given to me to travel out here, thanks to Rachel Ryan at the Meadowlands and Moira Fanning of the Hamiltonian Society. So if you get one of those questions right, I will get the address, and when I get back to Jersey, we'll head over to the post office and send it out.
You realize unless somebody has a cheat sheet, nobody knows the answer to his trivia questions.
I picked out a few that I think will be okay.
Really?
You'll be able to get the answer.
Oh, really? Okay. Any other questions, real quick, before we go further?
If you have any questions in the audience, go ahead and
Any
raise your
subject,
hand, and
any
I'll bring over the
subject.
microphone.
Because really, there's not much to say about the.
Don't be shy.
There's.
We have one right here.
Give me the best reason or the best way to make harness racing popular again.
Wiggle it, jiggle it, and locks for words.
A few more races like that.
What was it? Oh, it was the second heat. Oh, wasn't it? Yeah, second heat. Where was it? Oh, the Little Brown Jug. Oh, okay.
I have a question, sir. Where are you from?
From France.
You're
Paris.
from France, okay. I have actually been able to go. Roger's been overseas a couple times in the last couple years, but I've been to Sweden for the Elite Lot Bet twice, 2016, 2017. So I really got to see how they do things over there. I think one thing that you guys do great in Europe is your video. The way you guys film the races, you really bring the fans in. You have the close-up cameras that are actually like on the track. They kind of come down and just you really show the emotion from the drivers and from the horses over there. And drivers over there, as much as they're kind of a big deal here, they're literally a really big deal over there because harness racing is a big deal over there. So
Rock stars, right?
They really are. But I think because the fans really get to be up close with the horses and the way you guys present things. So I think if we could really change the way we video races and show them, I think that would really have a big impact.
I think probably most people have heard because it's been well publicized, and a lot of the sponsors for the event are breeding farms here in the States and things like that. But I've gone to Dublin, Ireland the last 4 years to a small racetrack called Port Marnock. Believe it or not, Del Miller drove there. I think Delvin Miller drove at every racetrack in the world or something like that, but he drove there many years ago. Harness racing and I'm not going to put Sweden, Norway, and Finland in this, and that's other countries I've been to, but Great Britain, Wales, Scotland, Ireland. 10-horse fields. 4, 4, and 2 behind the gate. It's a county fair atmosphere. No pari-mutuel wagering. 6 or 7 bookies. They'll bet $250,000 a day through the bookies. They'll have attendance maybe 3,000 people, maybe close to 3,500, 400. There's no running water in the paddock for the horsemen. They have to bring their own water. 10-horse field. Some of the races, they pay first and second money. And that's it. They go for 500, 600 euros in some of the races. The mentality in Europe is totally different in the United States. Over here, it's for the money, the money, the money, and the money. Over there, it's the love of the horse, it's the love of the racing, the enjoyment of it. 35, 40 people in every winner's circle picture. Happiest people in the world. Racing probably under the most difficult circumstances. It's their biggest race. And it's just like a county fair here in Ohio. They have a love for harness racing. I'm not saying that we don't have a love for harness racing, but our purses are not just given to the first and second place finisher. You'll have 10 horses in the race. They don't worry about second heats. They race the elimination on Saturday and come back for the final on Sunday, the very next day. It doesn't hurt their horses. And by the way, 70% of the horses are U.S. bred. They buy a horse at Harrisburg, pay $15,000 or $20,000. Cost $8,000 to ship that horse overseas. So they're putting the money into the business. Foreclosure Inn stands over there. No pan intended stood over there for a while until his tragic death. It's a different thing over there. I wish I could come up with a trainer's name, but I can't. He raced in Canada and the United States as a second trainer for a large stable. And when we were at Wales, they asked him, "Why did you come home?" He says, "I got sick and tired of the rat race. I wanted to come home where it was really fun to be involved in harness racing." We got a guy at the Meadows by the name of Bill Berkery of the opinion, and he's got Barn Girl on the Miss Versatility. Harness racing is fun if you let it be. It's more important than money to a lot of people. Now, I'm not downgrading the farms and everybody that wants the syndication. It's different over here. But the mentality over there is a lot different too for the fan, the owners, the trainers, the drivers. Dan Noble went with me this year. Dan, if you asked him, he probably had more fun in Dublin, Ireland than he's had in a long time here in the States. The other horsemen were gracious to him. He got a lot of drives. I think he drove at a 379 percentage while he was over there. Set a track record at a mile and a quarter. Never driven in a mile and a quarter race in his life. He had a ball, and I'm glad I took him. Little story about Aaron Merriman. He went over. He had a ball too. Now, you're going to find this hard to believe. Saturday, he did absolutely nothing 2 years ago. I don't think he finished better than third or fourth. And one of the leading drivers over there walked up to him on Sunday and said, now, this is what he told Aaron Merriman. "Aaron, you got to get more aggressive."
I can't believe that. I mean,
It's a true story. Aaron will tell you. The guy told him you got to be more aggressive. He got more aggressive, won 2 races that day. I don't know whether he was intimidated or what, but it's different over there. So if you ever get a chance, to go overseas for a race, and I'm throwing Sweden, Finland, Norway, all those countries, Australia, New Zealand, take the opportunity and get to know the people there in harness racing. And it's a great, great feeling. And I will say this. It's one of the things that really keep me going is going overseas. I'm not taking anything away from you folks here or anything like that. But those folks over there love harness racing, and I mean, and they really, they're not making a lot of money. They're not making a lot of money, but they love harness racing.
I have a quick question for the gentleman that asked us that question. Do you still get a good crowd for the Prix de Marie?
Yeah, 30, 40,000 something.
That's what they had 35,000 at the Elite Lot Vet this year as well. So you can't believe it. You got to see it to believe it.
We had a race day on a Friday in Kabul. Not especially good racing, but they have done good for the public. 19,000 people without especially good racing.
Oslo,
Fantastic.
Norway, I had the chance to go over and call the Oslo Grand Prix for 4 or 5 straight years. And I'm saying they probably had somewhere in the vicinity of 30 to 35,000 people there. And the fans over there really get involved. They'll have groups with the flags of the various countries sitting in the stands. And when the French trotter goes by, everybody's waving the French flag. And then here comes the Swedish horse. They're wearing the Swedish fan. True story. True story. Oslo, Norway. Group of about 40 or 50 Swedish men and women. He wins the race. They go around the track. They hand him the Swedish flag, and he's going around the track, waving the Swedish flag. Comes in front of the stands. 20 Swedish women jumped up, took off their tops. I mean,
Remember, Roger, this is a family show.
That might be a good tradition to start here at the Jug.
That would bring people back. If we started having topless women dancing on the track, I think we would get a crowd again.
But Roger, today's Thursday. It's not Whip 'em Out Wednesday.
Let's talk about today's Jug. Fear the Dragon, down by the seaside. I am a big fan of Fear the Dragon. My relationship with Bruce Trogdon for maybe 50 years. I've known him when he had 3 or 4 horses, and now he's got I don't know how many. I have never seen a horse like Fear the Dragon, and I'm going to throw David Miller into it as well. In the 2 times he raced this year at the Meadows, Huntsville was cutting it out and had him by maybe 10 or 12 lengths, both times at the halfway point. David just tips Fear the Dragon out, and I think in one of the calls I said, he's making up ground inch by inch. 12 lengths, 11 lengths, not a swoosh, 10 lengths, 9 lengths, 8 lengths. Top of the stretch, Fear the Dragon hit another gear and went by Huntsville so fast, Huntsville didn't even realize he was in a horse race. Fear the Dragon is a monster. Now, I haven't seen down by the seaside live. You have.
I have. And it for the 3-year-olds, Roger, for me, it's sometimes a tale of the beginning of the season, the middle of the season, and the end of the season. And as much as we liked watching Fear the Dragon early on, and I saw some of those races, and he's a horse that just wants to chase you down. He wants to win, but he wants a target too. You know, he's not as good on the front end. Down by the seaside, kind of after being second fiddle or third fiddle early on in the season, has progressed immensely over the course of the last month and a half. He's a little bit more handy and can be versatile enough to do it either way. He's going to take charge today for Brian Sears, and you know, in my opinion, I think he's the one to beat at this point. Fear the Dragon, you know, he got sick at a very important time in the middle of the summer, which really hurts colts. It kind of, you know, backs them down on their training. And he qualified at the only place he really qualified because Brian Brown needed to put a start into him. The track was bad that day. And when we spoke to Dave Miller on the air at the end of the day yesterday, this is what Dave said. These are Dave's words, not mine. I wasn't impressed by his qualifier. You know, when Dave says that to me, and he's usually brutally honest, when he says he's not impressed with that qualifier, I'm listening, and I'm going to pay attention, and I'm going to go that way.
One other thing, and I don't mean to correct you, but the horse was not sick. You used the word sick.
Okay.
Every horse on the grounds was sick here at Delaware. Brian Brown's horses were not that sick like everybody else's. And he had the veterinarian give every horse in his barn, and I wish I could come up, but it's something for the immune system.
Equistem.
Okay. They gave him
It's
that.
an immune booster.
The veterinarian gave it to him in the hip, and soreness developed in that hip and only in that hip. The rumor was that the very next day the caretaker was jogging the horse and the horse ran away with him. It wasn't the caretaker, it was Brian Brown. And Brian said the reason he ran away, he didn't use the word ran away, but the reason he got on the bit so much was because the line came back and was laying on the spot where the vet had given the injection, and it was hurting him. At no time was this horse lame. He was not lame. It was strictly a reaction from that. The blood levels went sky high. They wanted to race him in the final at Harris. They had to scratch because he didn't want to do it. Then they wanted to race him in the Jug Preview. He couldn't race in the Jug Preview because you have to wait 7 days after a scratch, so he couldn't do that. David Miller did say he was not impressed, but he also, I think, said, and I don't know if he said it on TV or not, but after he talked to Brian Brown was happy with the effort. And Brian himself told me that David drove the horse in the 2-out position the entire mile. So that's an extra, 70, 80 feet for a mile?
Well, not to mention looking at the track there at Hoosier, it was 2 seconds off, and I know that track out there when it gets when it gets rain like that and gets a little bit heavy, 2 seconds is it says 2 seconds, but you really never know how heavy it was. So it shows 54, but he still was quite good. But 2 seconds, you got to think that was probably 52, 51 fashion.
And as Paul Harvey says, now the rest of the story.
Now the rest.
Look up the horse that finished second to Fear the Dragon in that qualifier. And I hope I'm quoting him exact right. The horse was out of the Burke stable, had won 3 in a row. The last 2 races were under 150. He qualified 5 lengths behind Fear the Dragon. So even though Dave might not have been so impressed, his effort was very impressive according to Brian Brown. Now, he trained him lightly here. He was fine. I asked Brian, I says, is it going to affect him? He says, we'll find out. But he hasn't raced for, 3.5 weeks or something?
August 18th in a
At
division.
the Meadows.
Yeah, at the Meadows.
Listen, yesterday Brian Brown sent in a filly that hadn't raced since June 3rd. And I said, I'm sorry. I said, there's just way too much. You got to have some good race miles on her. She was absolutely vicious. So he knows how to get them ready. And so that date for Brian Brown for me just goes out the window as far as that goes, because he showed us yesterday that doesn't really matter.
Totally agree.
Looking at these 2 horses, in my opinion, you got Dave Miller on Fear the Dragon. I'm going to go with Fear the Dragon as well. I've watched his horse race at the Meadows and just racing. I think that group of 3-year-old colts on the PA Sire Stakes circuit is just really, really tough. And, he was definitely a top contender there, and, really was just some bad luck. Like Roger said, he had to scratch out of that final. But the only thing, other than Down by the Seaside just being an absolute killer as well, is he gets Brian Sears. And Brian Sears knows this track here well. And if you had to bring a driver here other than Dave Miller, I'm going to say I'm going to have Brian Sears. And that's one thing Down by the Seaside has, Dave.
He does.
Brian, hey, Brian, what do you think about that?
Yeah, he's a man of few words, and he would say, he would just smile, and, but let me tell you something. When the gate swings, yeah, you want that, if you don't have Dave here, Brian Sears is okay too.
I think Brian would say, I think we got a good shot.
I agree.
Those are his kind of words.
Now, believe it or not, they're not the only 2 horses in this race.
Absolutely.
Mark Harder, after Boogie Shuffle, 3 straight, said this horse is coming on, and I don't know the exact words, but he said, we're going to the jug. That's Boogie Shuffle.
Well, I know I spoke with Matt Kakali last night, and he really was a little bit disappointed with Filibuster as Boogie Shuffle took that $250,000 Sire Stake final right away from him, beat him by a half length there right at the end at Harris Philly there in 48-2. So he said, I asked Matt, I said, what about Boogie Shuffle? He's like, what do you mean about Boogie Shuffle? He said. He's like, he's got a big shot. Don't leave him out and give him some consideration today.
Funk and Waffles.
Are you going to have fun with that name today? I've been waiting to
No,
ask you that. No?
no.
You're just going to roll right through it?
No, I'm just worried that I pronounced it correctly.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will.
You know, Funk and Waffle, speaking of Crawford Farms, you know, they're really great people. They really come, they've always been kind of dabbling in horse racing. They've really come back on the scene here in the last 4 or 5 years, and man, they've done a lot for the sport. They sponsor the Meadowlands Pace. Dave, you know, they do a lot out your way. What are other examples for Crawford Farms? It's good to see them bring their colt here.
Well, if you're friends with Michelle Crawford on Facebook, you know just how much she loves horses. And she never misses a Little Brown Jug if she has any horse racing that week. She actually rolled in yesterday with her husband, Al, and walked right by this tent when the first session of the Speaker Series was going. She saw me through the window. She goes, Dave! You know, she loves it here.
They're great.
She's very, very happy to, number one, be competing in a race like this. And, of course, she's got the rail, you know, with Funk and Waffles. Now, he's been very good throughout the season. He hasn't been elite to beat the very, very top colts, but he's got the rail. And he's got Corey Callahan, who navigates this track very, very well when he shows up, and it's not all that often. So Funk and Waffles has got a chance. And when Ron Burke and Matt Kakali were sitting in these chairs at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock yesterday morning, you know, they went through their three. And by listening to them very closely, I gleaned that I think Filibuster Hanover was their best chance. He's got post 2, he's got Yannick Gingras, and Ronnie Burke explained the evolution of his season. He was dealing with some soundness issues a little bit earlier. He's come out of that. He's very, very good right now, and he'll be going forward, whether it be early or late. He's a live long shot.
I want to say about the Burke stable too on that, but I got to go back to Michelle Crawford.
Go ahead.
Last night at the New Vocations event, they sold 2 5-month-old ponies. Yeah. It was like Michelle Crawford was at the Harrisburg sale, urging Al to go higher, higher, higher. She wanted this 5-month-old pony. She got it for $3,200. So thanks to Michelle Crawford for
always right there. Yeah. And she's very.
As soon as she buys the pony, she goes over, gives it a big hug. Oh my God!
Well,
she was happy.
And I think she knows that money goes to support New Vocations, the racehorse adoption program. So she knows it's going to a good cause, and you know that just shows the class and the type of people they are.
Yeah.
And everybody knows Amy Holler. And I'll give her all the credit in the world. Casey Coleman's always done it. She's led the ponies up and back and forth in front of the audience. But Amy showed up last night in Brian Brown's colors. Helmet, everything.
She's
Trace
a team player.
Tetrick was there. He's following the pony to keep it going in case he wouldn't run for Amy. It was a show in itself. Now let's get back to the Burke stable.
All right, we just have a couple of minutes left, and just let us know what you think about the jug, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. RJP. Last start. Meadows, 9-9. Finished second. Horse should have won the race by 10 lengths. Went right by him in the stretch. He's had problems. I don't know exactly what. Somebody said it was a breathing problem or something like that. Adios, they just bought that horse right before the Adios.
Correct.
And that was going to be their Adios horse. They didn't win the Adios.
He was really
I got a
good in
feeling
the Adios,
RJP
though.
will be a little better.
He was good in the Adios, though. He really was.
In the Adios?
Oh, yeah.
He was.
In the final. Yeah, he was very good.
He didn't win. But RJP's had problems of late, and he should have won that last race, and so that's all I had about
post
that.
7 too, and he's not
Yeah.
exactly an early speed
Yeah.
kind of blaster, so he's going to need a little bit of luck and a little bit of mayhem to set
And
up his kick.
Ron Burke is one of those trainers. 2 heats, it don't bother me. He put 3 horses in the Little Brown Jug. He didn't know how many was going to be here, but he put 3. And I think Brian Brown would have put a third, but the reason Brian
can't do
didn't put
that.
a third in, because if it would have gone 2 divisions, the possibility would have been that Fear the Dragon and Down by the Seaside would have to race against each other in the first division or second division. So that's why Brian didn't put the 3rd horse in.
You know, I think, and also the 8-horse Chip Walther, Irv Miller, got the Nick Sir connections in there. They're another one. They just wanted to come race in the jug. This colt was racing in some New York Sire Stake action and some EBCs. You know, he's not been his best of late, but they said, hey, we're going to the jug, and they drew the 8, which, you know, not the best of luck.
And I can visualize that if Me So Fast gets a trip, he's been around all season. It could be Me So Fast. So this is not a walkover for the brown horses. It's going to be one heck of a harness race this afternoon. And the 40,000 people that are here, you're going to have a good time.
So from what I hear, I got Dave Brower with Down by the Seaside, Wendy Ross, Fear the Dragon, and Roger Houston with a dead heat between Down by the Seaside and Fear the Dragon.
But Fear the Dragon if it's not a dead heat.